Good evening, and thank you for joining us for tonight. We have a story from China, from the book Chinese Myths and Legends. This story is called Nu Wo, the Mother of Mankind. I'm only going to be reading part 1 today. This story has several parts. I believe it is 4 parts, perhaps. Let me find out. There's 6 parts. 6 parts to this story. I'm going to read part 1 tonight. This is Nu Wo, the Mother of Mankind. Part 1. The Creation of Man. According to ancient Chinese legend, after the world was created, it held only mountains, rivers, grass, flowers, and trees. There were also birds, beasts, insects, and fish, but mankind did not exist. One day, a goddess called Nu Wo looked down on the world from the celestial realm, where the gods lived, and decided to visit. She had lived in the celestial realm for tens of thousands of years, where she had been very happy at first. After a while, however, her days began to blend one into another seamlessly, like a blank, endless roll of rice paper. She needed a change. The world pleased Nu Wo greatly. She saw beautiful mountains, green waters, birds that flew in the sky, and plentiful beasts roaming the earth. The bright sun and gentle rains caressed the bountiful land, but Nu Wo didn't see a single being that looked like her. She thought about how miraculous the world was, and felt that something was missing. She wandered down to a nearby river to wash her hands. As she knelt down, she saw her reflection in the water. This gave her an idea. The riverbank was made of yellow clay, and she grabbed a handful and began to knead it. As she rolled it into a sphere, she thought to herself, "This clay is so malleable, I can make it into anything I want." Nu Wo began to fashion with the clay a little doll that looked like her. As soon as she set the doll on the ground, it became a living, breathing being. The little girl laughed and ran about playfully. Pulling at Nu Wo's hands, she said, "Mother, mother." When Nu Wo heard the sweet, pretty little girl call her mother, she felt her heart fill with love. She caressed the little girl's cheek and asked, "Pretty little child, am I really your mother? What are you called?" The child answered, "I am called human being, mother." Nu Wo and the child were inseparable and wandered the world far and wide. Nu Wo taught the little girl the names of all things on earth. She showed the little girl what birds and beasts were, which creatures were friendly, which creatures to run away from, and what was safe to eat. The little girl got into a lot of mischief at first. One day she disturbed a hive of bees. The bees swarmed around her. "Mother," she cried. "Child, don't be afraid. Stay still and quiet, and they will not harm you. Bees are friends that make honey. If you do not disturb them, they will leave you alone." Nu Wo tried to calm the little girl down. Just as Nu Wo finished speaking, a rabbit ran out in front of them. It stopped and sniffed the air with its pink nose. Looking at them inquisitively with its soft brown eyes, Nu Wo said, "Child, this creature is called Rabbit. It doesn't bite. It is a friend. You can play with it." The little girl and the rabbit cavorted around happily. Nu Wo watched them with satisfaction. Suddenly the rabbit ran toward the mountains, and the little girl ran off after it. They ran further and further away until they were no longer visible. Nu Wo was very anxious. "Child, child, come back! Please come back!" she cried. But the only answer she got were the echoes of her own desperate cries from the rocky cliffs. Nu Wo looked for the child for a long time, but couldn't find her. Her heart was filled with worry, and her grief weighed upon her like a stone. For many years, Nu Wo wandered about, depressed. Everywhere she looked, she was reminded of her sweet little girl. Finally, she gave up searching and wearily sat down on a rock to think. She thought, I made one human being out of the yellow clay. I can make another. In fact, I'll make a lot of them. Yes! Then the whole world will be filled with my children. I'll never feel lonely again. Nu Wo began to make doll after doll out of the yellow clay. She fashioned them to look like the gods of the celestial realm. Some were little boys and some were little girls. As soon as she set them down on the ground, they came to life. They crowded around her, laughing and jumping about. They cried, Mother, Mother! Nu Wo had never felt such happiness before. That was the end of part 1 from Nu Wo, the Mother of Mankind. We'll read part 2 another day. Thank you so much for listening. Good night, everybody.